Volume 1, Book 3, Number 124. Narrated Ubay bin Ka'b. The Prophet said, once the Prophet Moses stood up and addressed Bani Israel. He was asked, who is the most learned man amongst the people? He said, I am the most learned. Allah admonished Moses as he did not attribute absolute knowledge to him, Allah. So Allah inspired to him at the junction of the two seas, there is a slave amongst my slaves who is more learned than you. Moses said, O my Lord, how can I meet him? Allah said, take a fish in a large basket and proceed, and you will find him at the place where you will lose the fish. So Moses set out along with his servant boy Yusha bin Nun and carried a fish in a large basket till they reached a rock where they laid their heads, i.e. lay down and slept. The fish came out of the basket, and it took its way into the sea as in a tunnel. So it was an amazing thing for both Moses and his servant boy. They proceeded for the rest of that night and the following day. When the day broke, Moses said to his servant boy, bring us our early meal. No doubt we have suffered much fatigue in this journey. Moses did not get tired till he passed the place about which he was told. There the servant boy told Moses, do you remember when we betook ourselves to the rock? I indeed forgot the fish. Moses remarked, that is what we have been seeking. So they went back, retracing their footsteps, till they reached the rock. There they saw a man covered with a garment, or covering himself with his own garment. Moses greeted him. Al-Qadir replied, saying, how do people greet each other in your land? Moses said, I am Moses. He asked, the Moses of Bani Israel. Moses replied in the affirmative and added, may I follow you so that you can teach me of that knowledge which you have been taught? Al-Qadir replied, verily, you will not be able to remain patient with me, O Moses. I have some of the knowledge of Allah which He has taught me, and which you do not know, while you have some knowledge which Allah has taught you, which I do not know. Moses said, Allah willing, you will find me patient, and I will not disobey you in aught. So both of them set out walking along the seashore. As they did not have a boat, in the meantime a boat passed them, and they requested the crew of the boat to take them on board. The crew recognized Al-Qadir and took them on board without fare. Then a sparrow came and stood on the edge of the boat and dipped its beak once or twice in the sea. Al-Qadir said, O Moses, my knowledge and your knowledge have not decreased Allah's knowledge, except as much as the sparrow has decreased the water of the sea with its beak. Al-Qadir went to one of the planks of the boat and plucked it out. Moses said, These people gave us a free lift, but you have broken their boat and scuttled it so as to drown its people. Al-Qadir replied, Didn't I tell you that you will not be able to remain patient with me? Moses said, Call me not to account for what I forgot. The first excuse of Moses was that he had forgotten. Then they proceeded further and found a boy playing with other boys. Al-Qadir took hold of the boy's head from the top and plucked it out with his hands, i.e. killed him. Moses said, Have you killed an innocent soul who has killed none? Al-Qadir replied, Did I not tell you that you cannot remain patient with me? Then they both proceeded till when they came to the people of a town. They asked them for food, but they refused to entertain them. Then they found there a wall on the point of collapsing. Al-Qadir repaired it with his own hands. Moses said, If you had wished, surely you could have taken wages for it. Al-Qadir replied, This is the parting between you and me. The Prophet added, May Allah be merciful to Moses. Would that he could have been more patient to learn more about his story with Al-Qadir. 125. Narrated Abu Musa, a man came to the Prophet and asked, O Allah's Apostle, what kind of fighting is in Allah's cause? I ask this, for some of us fight because of being angry or enraged, and some for the sake of his pride and haughtiness. (126) Narrated Abdullah bin Amr. I saw the Prophet near the Jamrah, and the people were asking him questions about religious problems. A man asked, O Allah's Apostle, I have slaughtered the hadi animal before doing the Rami. The Prophet replied, Do the Rami now, and there is no harm. Another person asked, O Allah's Apostle, I got my head shaved before slaughtering the animal. The Prophet replied, Do the slaughtering now, and there is no harm. So on that day, when the Prophet was asked about anything as regards the ceremonies of Hajj performed before or after its due time, his reply was, Do it now, and there is no harm. (127) Narrated Abdullah. While I was going with the Prophet through the ruins of Medina, and he was reclining on a date palm leaf stalk, some Jews passed by. Some of them said to the others, Ask him, the Prophet, about the Spirit. Some of them said that they should not ask him that question, as he might give a reply which would displease them. But some of them insisted on asking, and so one of them stood up and asked, O Abul Qasim, What is the Spirit? The Prophet remained quiet. I thought he was being inspired divinely, so I stayed till that state of Prophet while being inspired was over. The Prophet then said, "And they ask you, O Muhammad, concerning the Spirit. Say, the Spirit, its knowledge, is with my Lord, and of knowledge you mankind have been given only a little." 128. Narrated Aswad Ibn Az-Zubayr said to me, Aisha used to tell you secretly a number of things. What did she tell you about the Kaaba? I replied, she told me that once the Prophet said, O Aisha, had not your people been still close to the pre-Islamic period of ignorance, infidelity, I would have dismantled the Kaaba and would have made 2 doors in it, one for entrance and the other for exit. Later on, Ibn Az-Zubayr did the same. 129. Narrated Abu Tufail, the above-mentioned statement of Ali. 130. Narrated Anas bin Malik. Once Mu'adh was along with Allah's Apostle as a companion rider. Allah's Apostle said, O Mu'adh bin Jabal. Mu'adh replied, Labbaik and Sadaik, O Allah's Apostle. Again the Prophet said, O Mu'adh. Mu'adh said thrice, Labbaik and Sadaik, O Allah's Apostle. Allah's Apostle said, There is none who testifies sincerely that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is his apostle, except that Allah will save him from the hellfire. Mu'adh said, O Allah's Apostle, should I not inform the people about it so that they might have glad tidings? He replied, when the people hear about it, they will solely depend on it. Then Mu'adh narrated the above-mentioned hadith just before his death, being afraid of committing sin by not telling the knowledge. 131. Narrated Anas. I was informed that the Prophet had said to Mu'adh, Whosoever will meet Allah without associating anything in worship with him will go to paradise. Mu'adh asked the Prophet, should I not inform the people of this good news? The Prophet replied, No, I am afraid lest they should depend upon it absolutely. 132. Narrated Salama. Salama came to Allah's Apostle and said, Verily, Allah is not shy of telling you the truth. Is it necessary for a woman to take a bath after she has a wet dream, nocturnal sexual discharge? The Prophet replied, Yes, if she notices a discharge. Salama then covered her face and asked, O Allah's Apostle, does a woman get a discharge? He replied, Yes, let your right hand be in dust. An Arabic expression you say to a person when you contradict his statement, meaning you will not achieve goodness, and that is why the son resembles his mother. 133. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Once Allah's Apostle said, Amongst the trees there is a tree, the leaves of which do not fall, and is like a Muslim. Tell me the name of that tree. Everybody started thinking about the trees of the desert areas, and I thought of the date palm tree, but I felt shy to answer. For others asked Allah's Apostle, inform us of it. He replied, "To the date palm tree." I told my father what had come to my mind. And on that he said, "Had you said it, I would have preferred it to such and such a thing that I might possess." 134. Narrated Ali. I used to get the emotional urethral discharge frequently, so requested Al-Miqdad to ask the Prophet about it. Al-Miqdad asked him, and he replied, "One has to perform ablution after it." 135. Narrated Nafi. Abdullah bin Umar said, a man got up in the mosque and said, "O Allah's Apostle, at which place you order us that we should assume the ihram?" Allah's Apostle replied, "The residents of Medina should assure the ihram from Dhul Hulaifa, the people of Syria from Al-Jufa, and the people of Najd from Qarn." Ibn Umar further said, "The people considered that Allah's Apostle had also said, the residents of Yemen should assume the ihram from Yalamlam." Ibn Umar used to say, "I do not remember whether Allah's Apostle had said the last statement or not." 136. Narrated Ibn Umar. A man asked the Prophet, what kinds of clothes should a muhrim, a Muslim intending to perform Umrah or Hajj, wear? He replied, he should not wear a shirt, a turban, trousers, a head, cloak, or garment scented with saffron or horse kind of perfumes. And if he has on slippers, then he can use Qufs, leather socks. But the socks should be cut short so as to make the ankles bare. Book 4. Ablutions, Wudu. Volume 1, Book 4, number 137. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Apostle said, the prayer of a person who does hadaf, passes urine, stool, or wind, is not accepted till he repeats the ablution. A person from Hadramaut asked Abu Huraira, what is hadaf? Abu Huraira replied, hadaf means the passing of wind from the anus. Narrated Nu'am al-Mujmir. Once I went up the roof of the mosque along with Abu Huraira. He performed ablution and said, I heard the Prophet saying, on the day of resurrection my followers will be called al-Ghur ul-Muhajjalun, from the trace of ablution, and whoever can increase the area of his radiance should do so, i.e. by performing ablution regularly. (139) Narrated Abbas bin Tamim. My uncle asked Allah's Apostle about a person who imagined to have passed wind during the prayer. Allah's Apostle replied, he should not leave his prayers unless he hears sound or smells something. 140. Narrated Quraib. Ibn Abbas said, the Prophet slept till he snored, and then prayed, or probably lay till his breath sounds were heard, and then he got up and prayed. Ibn Abbas added, I stayed overnight in the house of my aunt Maimuna. The Prophet slept for a part of the night, and late in the night he got up and performed ablution from a hanging water skin, a light perfect ablution, and stood up for the prayer. I too performed a similar ablution. Then I went and stood on his left. He drew me to his right and prayed as much as Allah wished, and again lay and slept till his breath sounds were heard. Later on, the Mu'addin caller for the prayer came to him and informed him that it was time for prayer. The Prophet went with him for the prayer without performing a new ablution. Sufyan said to Amr, but some people said, the eyes of Allah's apostle sleep, but his heart does not sleep. Amr replied, I heard Ubayd bin Umar saying that the dreams of prophets were divine inspiration, and then he recited the verse, Abraham see in a dream, O my son, that I offer you in sacrifice to Allah. 37:102. 141. Narrated Usama bin Zayd. Allah's apostle proceeded from Arafah till when he reached the mountain pass. He dismounted, urinated, and then performed ablution, but not a perfect one. I said to him, is it time for the prayer, O Allah's apostle? He said, the place of prayer is ahead of you. He rode till when he reached Al-Muzdalifah. He dismounted and performed ablution and a perfect one. The call for Iqamah was pronounced and he led the Maghrib prayer. When everybody made his camel kneel down at its place, then the Iqamah was pronounced for the Isha prayer, which the Prophet led, and no prayer was offered in between the two prayers, Isha and Maghrib. 142. Narrated Atta bin Yasar. Ibn Abbas performed ablution and washed his face in the following way. He ladled out a handful of water, rinsed his mouth, and washed his nose with it by putting in water and then blowing it out. He then took another handful of water and did like this, gesturing, joining both hands, and washed his face. Took another handful of water and washed his right forearm. He again took another handful of water and washed his left forearm, and passed wet hands over his head, and took another handful of water and poured it over his right foot up to the ankles, and washed it thoroughly, and similarly took another handful of water and washed thoroughly his left foot up to the ankles, and said, I saw Allah's apostle performing ablution in this way. 143. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, if any one of you, on having sexual relations with his wife, said, and he must say it before starting, in the name of Allah, O Allah, protect us from Satan, and also protect what you bestow upon us, i.e. the coming offspring from Satan, and if it is destined that they should have a child, then Satan will never be able to harm that offspring. 144. Narrated Anas. Whenever the Prophet went to answer the call of nature, he used to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika minal khubuthi wal khaba'ith. O Allah, I seek refuge with you from all offensive and wicked things, evil deeds and evil spirits. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika minal khubuthi wal khaba'ith. 145. Narrated Ibn Abbas. Once the Prophet entered a lavatory, and I placed water from his ablution. For his ablution, he asked who placed it. He was informed accordingly, and so he said, O Allah, make him Ibn Abbas a learned scholar in religion, Islam. 146. Narrated Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. Allah's Apostle said, if any one of you goes to an open space for answering the call of nature, he should neither face nor turn his back toward the Qibla. He should either face the east or the west. 147. Narrator Abdullah bin Umar. People say, whenever you sit for answering the call of nature, you should not face the Qibla or Baytul Maqdis, Jerusalem. I told them once, I went up the roof of our house and I saw Allah's Apostle answering the call of nature, was sitting on two bricks facing Baytul Maqdis, Jerusalem, but there was a screen covering him. 148. Narrated Aisha. The wives of the Prophet used to go to Al-Manasi, a vast open place near Baqiyah at Medina, to answer the call of nature at night. Umar used to say to the Prophet, "Let your wives be veiled." But Allah's Apostle did not do so. One night, Sauda bint Zama, the wife of the Prophet, went out at Isha time, and she was a tall lady. Umar addressed her and said, "I have recognized you, O Sauda." He said so as he desired eagerly that the verses of Al-Hijab, the observing of veils by the Muslim women, may be revealed. So Allah revealed the verse of Al-Hijab, a complete body covering excluding the eyes. Number 149. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet said to his wives, "You are allowed to go out to answer the call of nature." 150. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, I went up to the roof of Hafsa's house for some job, and I saw Allah's Apostle answering the call of nature facing Sham, Syria, Jordan, Palestine and Lebanon, regarded as one country with his back towards the Qibla. 151. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, once I went up the roof of our house, and I saw Allah's Apostle answering the call of nature while sitting over two bricks facing Bayt ul-Maqdis, Jerusalem. 152. Narrated Anas bin Malik, whenever Allah's Apostle went to answer the call of nature, I, along with another boy, used to accompany him with a tumbler full of water, Hisham commented, so that he might wash his private parts with it. 153. Narrated Anas, whenever Allah's Apostle went to answer the call of nature, I, along with another boy from us, used to go behind him with a tumbler full of water. 154. Narrated Anas bin Malik, whenever Allah's Apostle went to answer the call of nature, I, along with another boy, used to carry a tumbler full of water for cleaning the private parts and an anza spear-headed stick. 155. Narrated Abu Qatada, Allah's Apostle said, whenever any one of you drinks water, he should not breathe in the drinking utensil, and whenever any one of you goes to the lavatory, he should neither touch his penis nor clean his private parts with his right hand. 156. Narrated Abu Qatada, the Prophet said, whenever any one of you makes water, he should not hold his penis or clean his private parts with his right hand. And while drinking, one should not breathe in the drinking utensil. Narrated Abu Huraira, 157. I followed the Prophet while he was going out to answer the call of nature. He used not to look this way or that, so when I approached near him, he said to me, "Fetch me some stones for cleaning the private parts," or said something similar, "and do not bring a bone or a piece of dung." So I brought the stones in the corner of my garment and placed them by his side, and then I went away from him. When he finished from answering the call of nature, he used them.